Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good morning everyone. Today also we'll be discussing about some natures that can be located in between the ultimacy and the concepts. So in Buddhism, in Theravada tradition, when we say concepts, now for instance, sometimes in the Western philosophy, when we say emotions like love, anger, sometimes they recognize it as a concept. But when it comes to the Theravada tradition, we should know that exactly what a concept is. Concept is something that is synthesized by the mind, looking into the ultimate realities. It's like looking into the formation of the four great elements. We call this a table. So likewise, but when we analyze it, we don't find a table, we only end up with the four great elements. So likewise, the ideas that are made in the mind are called concepts in the Theravada tradition, not the things like emotions, immaterial things. So in the tradition, we have realities which are material and immaterial. The concepts are something apart from that. Not everything immaterial should be considered as a concept within the Theravada. So that's also something that we have to keep in mind. Otherwise, when I say concepts in English, sometimes there is a chance that the idea may be conveyed that I'm talking about the immaterial stuff like emotions that are normally discussed in the Western philosophy. But strictly speaking, within the tradition, emotions are realities, they are immaterial realities which are connected with the mind. Consciousness is also same, it is also the awareness which is an immaterial thing. But it depends on the material, it has a great relationship with the material things, but it itself, the consciousness and the mental factors, they themselves are immaterial realities. So in the chart, if you remember, now we have been discussing about this chart for a long period. We have the ultimacy and we have the concepts. In between, we located few natures that cannot be exclusively defined as ultimate realities and also cannot be termed as concepts. They tend to come into the group of ultimacy, ultimate realities, but since the ultimacy in the Theravada tradition has specific definitions, it is quite hard to term them or coin them as ultimate reality. So we keep them in between the Paramatta and the concepts. For instance, if we remind what we have done for so far, the chart would be the Paramattas, and then we divided it into the Sankata Paramatta, and Asankata Paramatta, unconditioned. Then we listed the Sankata as Paramatta Dhammas, 4 groups. Then Paramatta Uppadino Dhamma. Then we had Paramatta Jatika. Then Anupanna Dhamma. We have already discussed them in some detail. Paramatta Dhammas were twofold. Actually, it was threefold: Chitta, Cetasika, and Rupa. We also gave a brief introduction about these realities. Then, when it comes to the Asankata Paramatta, we had Sammuti Nibbana, it is the release from the worldly suffering. Then we had Tadanga Nibbana, the release from the defilements, temporal release from the defilements by suppressing them. Then we had Vikambana Nibbana, This is the release from defilements by suppressing them in terms of jhanas, sometimes with vipassana jnana also. Then samucceda nibbana. This is the permanent eradication, permanent release from the defilements, and then we had nissarana nibbana. This is the freedom from all the suffering, and these two are identical in terms of reality. That is the nibbana that we aspire to attain. Then in the corner we had concepts. We call them paññatti, the Pali term. Paññatti, we had three. Normally we have twofold paññatti: nama paññatti, the names, the naming, then the atta paññatti. I'll be discussing them at the end of this chapter. And then there is something called saddha paññatti, while we listen to sounds, right? We'll be discussing about them later. Then in between we had some certain natures that were not categorized either as paramatta or paññatti, but they tend to come into the group of paramatta. So that's why I separated them from a broken line. So we discussed about last time we discussed anippanna rupa. Anippanna rupa means the material things that are not concretely produced by the four factors, four causes. There are four causes that produce the matter according to Theravada tradition. Kamma is a one factor. The chitta, the consciousness and the mental factors are another factor. Then the tejo dhatu, the element of tejo, heat or coldness, is another factor, and the nutriment element, which is the oja, is another factor. These are the four. So these are the four causes. So these rupas, we had 10 rupas, which cannot be designated exactly as matter directly produced by any of these four causes. Then today we are going to discuss about we call ekacche. It's a Pali term. I'll be using the Pali term because the entire diagram is written in Pali. So ekacche Pacche Sati. Pacche Sati means forces of certain causes. That's the topic that we are going to discuss today. Ekacche Pacche, certain forces of the causes, the conditions. I'll explain them in detail. Then we have universal characteristic, Tilakkana. Tilakkana, I think most of you are aware. The characteristics of impermanence, the characteristic of suffering, and the non-selfness. Then we have another topic called Gati, which will be also an interesting topic to think about. So Gati, it can have few names. Then we come into a topic called Ajatakasa. Ajatakasa. Then we also discuss about the time, Kala. Time. So this is the space, Ajatakasa. So this will be our lesson. So we are here now. So we are here. So we'll have to cover all these, and then we'll end this session of the courses. Actually, I was planning to end it at the end of May, but it seemed like the lectures took some time, as I was not supposing to explain them in detail, but I had to take few lectures to explain them. The idea of explaining them came in the middle of the session, because I found that some of the listeners are not very familiar with these terminologies and what they are. So I had to take few lectures to explain them. So that's why the number of lectures has increased now, but I'll be trying to cover them, all of them. So I'll be taking one lecture to cover all these points. And then we have another definition called Dhamma and Dhammatha. So we normally write them Dhamma and Dhammatha. So under this Dhammatha we have five Dhammatas. So I'll be explaining them in one lecture what they are, not the Dhammas, Dhammatas. So then we are when we finish all these topics, we are done with the ultimacy of the Theravada tradition. So these Dhammata are called laws of the Theravada tradition, like the niyamas we call in Pali. The law of the karma, the law of the weather conditions and so forth. I will not be going in detail, but giving an introduction what they are. They are different from the realities. A law is different from a reality. Law is what happens, how a reality is occurring, or how a reality exists under which conditions, what are the rules that governs them. So now, so this is the ultimacy and this is the concepts. So these things are in between. So last time we discussed there are few material attributes that are related to the matter but cannot be directly considered as rupa or as matter. So but still we have to, in the literature they are categorized, sometimes they are categorized as paramattas, but in some places the literature clearly defines them as not realities but related to the realities. Now we are talking about this ekacche pacche satti. Ekacche pacche satti. So ekacche means some, certain. Pachya means the condition. Satti is the force. Satti is the force. So if I erase this part, which is about the unconditioned realities. So if we define this term, ekacche, certain or some, not all, pachya, this ka. Pachya is condition or cause. Satti is force or ability, whatever it is, right? Ability. So now, we are not talking about all the forces of the conditions. First, you have to know what is a condition is. Sometimes when we say the conditions, now conditions for a thing to happen. So sometimes we may think about a certain state of the realities of affairs. Now, for instance, if we think about a condition for the arising of a tree, of a happening of a tree, there should be an environment suitable for that. There should be an environment suitable for that. And also for the harmony to exist within a country, there should be certain conditions that the equal rights should be there, everyone should be treated equally and so forth. So normally that's what when we say the word condition, it may convey a broader aspect of what is necessary for the happening of or existing of something. But when we come into the Theravada tradition, when we say the pachya or the condition, we are specifically aiming at realities, especially realities. A reality is a condition, and then sometimes the concepts are conditions for certain, like for the arising of certain ideas, like because concept can be an object of the mind. So when a mind arises taking an object or working towards a certain concept, that time the concept become a condition. So on all the other occasions, conditions are the realities. For instance, when hardness arises, it should arise together with cohesion, heat, and the bolting nature. So these three natures, Apo, Tejo and Vayu, are the conditions for the arising of hardness. So when we that's what it is mentioned in this famous formula of the Paticca Samuppada. Imasming sati idang hoti, imassa upada idang upajati. The word goes, imasming sati idang hoti, imassa upada idang upajati. They are identical. Imasming sati, if we take A, when A exists, B also happens. So A is condition, considered as a condition. B is as a result. So when we say a condition, sometimes now because of the existing of A, happening of B occurs. Because of the existence of A, B occurs. So when we look into this happening, we can think about we can dissect this incident sharply. Now the reality itself exists. The reality itself is something, the existence of the reality is something else, is another thing. And also the reality, B reality is something, and also the occurring of the B reality is something. So when we look into this incident, when the A is there, B happens, we can think about two aspects. In terms of the reality, where A causes B, A is a support for the B. And the next thing is, when we look into the entire incident, we understand because of the existing of the A, because A is present, presence of the A causes the happening, occurring, arising of the B. For that, we need to think, like normally we tend not to think in such ways in our day-to-day lives, but when we study the Theravada Buddhism, this is something that is very necessary, or it's very imperative to understand these two. When we come into the Tilakkana also, this aspect will be next week, I'll be elaborating it again. For instance, when we think about A happens and A passes away and A exists. So happening of A, arising of A from non-existent to existence. So and passing away of A from existence to non-existence. These are not identical with the reality. Happening, arising and the reality are two things. For instance, arising of a reality and the reality itself are not the same according to the Theravada. Arising of a reality and the reality are not the same. Reality has its own intrinsic nature. The arising of a reality is an incident. It is a happening. For instance, if you take the analogy of a child, child is the reality. The birth of the child is not the child. Birth of the child means child coming out from the mother's womb. Coming out from the mother's womb. So therefore, so we have to have that, we should be able to distinguish these two very clearly in order for us to understand the deep meanings of Theravada teachings, right? So these are two things that we have to clearly define. So the reality is one thing, and the arising of the reality or existing of the reality or the passing away of the reality are different. So that is very, very important. So when we talk about this happening, because of A, B occurs. A is the condition, and also we can say the existence of the A is also a condition. So these are two things. A is a condition, the existing of A is a condition, and sometimes we may say B is the result, the happening of the B is the result. So these are completely four topics that I am talking. I'll repeat again. A when we focus about the reality, A is the condition. And also we can say the existence of the A is the condition. The existence of the A. And B is a result. And also the arising of B is the result. Why is that? The arising of a reality is not the same, identical with the reality itself, according to the tradition. So that's how we distinguish the anicca and anicca lakkana. The reality is anicca, the passing away of the reality is the anicca lakkana. That is very important when we come into the vipassana meditation as well. So therefore, now when we think about this incident, when A is there, B happens, we can if we focus on the realities themselves, A is the cause, B is the result. And in another way, because of the existence of the A, B occurs. Now, we normally when we discuss about the condition and the causes in Theravada tradition, maybe Patthana or the Paticca-samuppada, the teaching goes as focusing on the realities, not about these happenings, the existing, arising, vanishing, not about them. We are talking mainly about the reality themselves. So that's why when we say Paccaya, right, so this should be addressed like arising of the reality and the reality are different, the vanishing of the reality and the reality are different, existence of the reality and the reality are different, right? So that is something that I'll be discussing them in detail whenever we do the chapter of causality. So now here we are focusing on the reality themselves. When we say Paccaya, we are talking about the happening of the reality. We are talking about the reality themselves. So A, because of A, B happens. A has, according to Theravadians, A has a certain ability. A possesses a certain ability to support the result. A has a certain ability to support the result. So in Pali we call it a force, sati. Sati. We can also call it, it's better to call it the force, right? Paccaya force. The ability to support the result. So if A is causing B, we distinguish A is a reality and that reality possesses a certain ability to support its result. So it's another subtle distinguishing. So we are talking about now the reality, right? If I remind, the reality is the condition. If we talk about the arising of the reality, existing of the reality and the passing away of the reality are different from the reality. But you cannot find them apart from the reality. That is another fact. We cannot have a birth of a child without a child. So likewise, we cannot have the arising of A without A. So they are connected with each other. But the Theravada philosophers, like the tradition, the teachings, clearly finds a like conspicuous difference between these two, the happening and the reality. And another aspect that they distinguish is the ability and the reality. So now we are looking into the one, when we say chitta, right? We are talking about the intrinsic nature of cognizing something, or the act of cognizing something. The chitta arises, chitta exists, and chitta passes away. So these arising, existing, and passing away are different from the chitta, but they are really connected to the chitta. And the next thing is, if chitta causes the arising of rupa, chitta has a certain ability, or it possesses a certain characteristic, a feature that facilitates the arising of the result. That feature embodied in this reality, found within the reality, it is already inbuilt. That inbuilt quality of the reality is called the Paccaya Sati. Ability to support the result is called Paccaya Sati. Paccaya is the condition. So A is a condition, because if it supports the B, if it supports B for the arising of B, A is a condition. So B is the result. A has its arising, existing, and passing away. Just forget about that. And A also has the ability to support B. That ability, if A is a Paccaya, condition is Paccaya, right? So condition is Paccaya. So its ability to support B is Paccaya Sati. So it's also a subtle, there is a subtle difference in them. So A we consider as a reality, the ability, the Paccaya Sati is not distinguished as a separate reality from A. It is something found within the A. In some places, this A and the ability have been made identical, but in some places, in most of the places, we distinguish them as two things. A is a reality, but the ability we don't distinguish as a separate entity. We call it something related to the reality, something connected to the reality, something that cannot be found apart from. If the reality was not there, you will not be able to find that ability. Now this is the explanation of Paccaya and the Paccaya Sati. Right? Condition is the Paccaya, its ability to support the force, support the result is the Paccaya Sati. So normally the Paccaya and the Paccaya Sati are found together. Now when the Paccaya passes away, Paccaya Sati also vanishes. So that is the normal explanation. So in that case, we can see all the Paccaya Satis can be put here. But I just want to emphasize there are three Paccaya Satis, Paccaya forces, that are found within the reality, but they tend to exist even after the reality has passed away. Normally this doesn't happen. Normally the Paccaya Sati would pass away together with the reality. But there are three instances in which the reality passes away, the Paccaya Sati may exist some time. But it's not only, sometimes when we go into the Patthana, we may find that there are more other Paccaya forces that can be explained so in that manner. But there are three natures that are clearly explained as to exist even after the Paccaya has passed away. After the condition has passed away, its ability to support the result does exist after its vanishing. So therefore, I'll be focusing on these three Paccaya forces, which I have already written in the handout, last week's handout. The same handout will be used. So the three Paccaya Sattis are Anantara Paccaya Satti, then we have Asevana Paccaya Satti, and Upanissaya, Pakatu Upanissaya. Ability. Support the result. Right. B is the result. Now, the Anantara Paccaya Satti. So what does this mean? So normally we know, according to the tradition, the mind exists in a stream, as a stream. As soon as one mind passes away, another mind arises. And as soon as it passes away, another mind arises immediately without leaving any gap, especially except in two occasions. So how the tradition explains this phenomenon? So when a mind arises, mind doesn't arise alone, it arises together with mental factors. So we call it a mental cluster, immaterial mental cluster. So the entire, now when we zoom this, we have Chitta and Cetasikas. Cetasika are the mental factors. Chitta is the consciousness. They happen together. So this entire mental cluster is focusing at an object. It focuses on an object. We call it Arammana in Pali, right? Object, Arammana. So Chitta and Cetasikas together cognizes an object, and they perform their unique and collective functions, and they pass away. So this act of cognition is found in this entire cluster. But among the realities, Chitta is prominent in the performance of the act of cognizing. The other Cetasikas have their own unique functions, like energizing the mental cluster, being sensitive to the taste of the object, flavor of the object, recognizing the object, going towards the object, ascending upon to the object, rubbing or investigating the object. They are the separate functions of these Cetasikas. But all of them have a collective, like a common function called cognition, knowing an object, focusing at an object. So among this, in this functioning, Chitta is the foremost. That's why Buddha mentioned Mano Pubbangama Dhamma. Chitta is the forerunner in this act of cognition. So now this collective mentalities cognizes a particular object. They arise and pass away, right? They arise and pass. This is an immaterial act. It's a one kind of a incident, we can call it. These realities perform a certain act of cognition. The act of cognition itself is also called the reality. So the thing that we want to emphasize is this act of cognition has a certain momentum-like speed. So normally momentum is found in the material things. So we normally mass multiply by this velocity is the momentum, mv. But here I am saying a momentum-like speed. It's something similar to that. There is no mass here. So therefore we cannot call it a momentum actually. So I am bringing in an analogy. So when the act of cognition arises and passes away, what happens? There is a certain kind of a momentum which doesn't cease or doesn't pass away together with act of cognition. So it's like when we run and suddenly stop, there is a certain momentum or a speed that still remains within us. So it tends to go further. So it takes our body further, even though we stop it suddenly, the act of we are running. So likewise, even though the consciousness passes away immediately after its arising, the speed of cognition we call Arambana Gahana Vega, the speed of cognition doesn't cease. So I gave it a momentum like speed of cognition. This speed of cognition remains even after the consciousness has passed away. The consciousness passes away, this act of cognition, the speed of cognition remains even after the passing away of the consciousness. So this speed is the reason, is the cause for the arising of another consciousness. It ceases only after causing the arising of another similar act. What is the similar act? This speed of cognition was found within the act of cognizing. So the act passes away, the action passes away, the cognition, the speed remains, and it causes the happening of another similar act. Similar act means an act of cognizing an object. So this speed causes for the arising of another act of cognition. It means it causes the arising of another chitta and cetasika. And this mental factors also, mental clusters passes away, and its cognition, its speed will cause the arising of another mental cluster. So likewise, even though I drew it with a gap, according to the tradition, there is no gap for the to convey the idea. I drew this, but there is no gap between these two, according to the tradition. So as soon as it passes away, this momentum doesn't completely ceases, it causes the arising of another consciousness. We normally doesn't recognize a gap between two chittas. So it's very difficult to understand in terms of logic how if there is no gap, how this cognition exists even after the passing away of the chitta. But that's how some teachers have explained this cognition, speed of cognition doesn't ceases as together with the consciousness. It causes the arising of another consciousness. Maybe it can be found like if, for example, if we draw it like without any gap. So as soon as it passes away, another consciousness arises, right? But the speed of cognition, right, still exists. So it passes away together with it ceases, having caused the arising of another consciousness. So likewise, so the thing is, this speed is the ability. The speed of the consciousness is the ability of the mental cluster to the happening of a reality. So Paccaya Sattya is the ability to support the results. So what is the ability of this? Now if we take this as the mental cluster, first mental cluster, and this is the second mental cluster, what was the ability of this A to support the B? Was its speed. Because of that speed that could exist even after its passing away was the reason, because of that the mental cluster number 2 arose. So we consider the speed, the momentum like speed, the Paccaya Sattya of the mental cluster, which causes the happening of the immediately proceeding mental cluster. So why? So therefore this momentum like speed does exist apart from the reality as well. So therefore we recognize it as something that exists, but we don't coin it as a ultimate reality because it doesn't have the characteristics to be called a reality like Chitta, Cetasika and Rupa, right? So that's the first explanation. Then we go into the Asevana Paccaya Sattya. Asavana Paccaya Sati is also similar, but it is found in some specific chittas. Like, so in the mind stream normally we have certain consciousness which are called Javana Chittas. Javana Chittas. Javana Chittas are the consciousness which have an extra power than the others. So because of this power of the Javana Chittas, the mind is capable of doing certain acts, knowing and like investigating an object, doing physical and mental acts, meditating, or like acts like verbal acts, talking, speaking out words. All these happens. All the consciousness in a person's mind, person's life, are unable to perform these actions. Only a few types of chittas are able to do that. In number, we number them as there are 55 types of such chittas according to our categorization. So, but collectively we call them the Javana Chittas. Javana Chittas are the consciousness that have an extra ability. Javana. Sometimes it's translated as dynamic. Right, which are dynamic. So what happens is, now normally every consciousness is produced by the speed of the cognition of the previous consciousness. Every mental cluster is produced by the speed of cognition of the previous immediately preceding mental cluster. Now in this mental stream, in some occasions, when the stream goes, there are in some places there appears certain powerful mental states, mental clusters. They have some extra force or ability than the normal mental clusters. So we call them the Javana mentalities. So because of their extra speed, we are able to do certain acts, physical, mental and verbal acts. So now this, what happens is, even in these mental clusters, other than the speed of cognition is found in every consciousness, and it's supposed the rising of the immediately preceding consciousness. Apart from that, there is a speed we call the Javana speed, extra speed. So it's very normally we don't have a standard translation, so some teachers tend to keep it as Javana in Pali rather than translating it as dynamic consciousness. So I'll also go with the Pali term. So these are the 7 Javana. Normally there are 7 Javana consciousness arising in red color. So the Javana speed is there. So the Javana speed also, it causes, we normally say the speed of a one Javana, first Javana, spreads to the second, and the speed of the second spreads to the third. So likewise, it keeps on conveying to the other, right? Normally that's what happens. So therefore, normally, because now the Javana consciousness passes away, its extra speed, the Javana speed we call. This Javana speed doesn't ceases together with the consciousness, it passes to the other consciousness. So what happens as a result, the following consciousness arises with more strength, more power. So that is, so therefore normally the Javana consciousness, the ability of a Javana consciousness in a one mental stream, normally they arise in 7 pair of 7 chittas, not more than that in ordinary occasions. So therefore, the following consciousness is somewhat stronger than the previous consciousness. That is called the Javana speed. So the Javana speed, because the Javana speed spreads, now the following consciousness arises because of the Anantara Paccaya Sati, because every consciousness has this momentum which causes the arising of a chitta. So Javana speed is doing, it makes the following chitta more powerful. So it is something that is additional to this first speed. So this is something comes in addition. So therefore these consciousness have a strong ability. Then one can ask a question, well, how did this consciousness get the Javana speed? It happens because of, there is also something called the law of mind. So normally the object comes, the mind, the ability of the mind, the strength of the mind increases, and naturally this consciousness becomes javana as a result of this process. The mind one after one, ability starts to elevate. But when it comes to the javana consciousness, it starts to, other than this elevation of the mental stream, additional force is added. Otherwise, someone can ask the question, from where did this consciousness get the javana ability, the extra force? It comes from the natural, it's law of consciousness within a mind stream, within a mind. Now, when we talk about the conscious streams, we have some, we call the conscious processes. We call them the conscious processes. The entire thing is the mind stream. Within the mind stream, we have processes which are temporary. Within a process, there is a law of consciousness that we have to discuss about when we come to chitta vittis, the mind processes. So this, within a process, there is a law of consciousness which makes the mind to be more powerful step by step, and then as a result, this consciousness become powerful, and then this process goes on. At the same time, the following consciousnesses get an additional power which is called the javana speed. So this javana speed exists even after the consciousness or the mental cluster has passed away. So we consider it as something existing apart. Even after the cause has passed away, this ability passes to the following consciousness. So that's why we recognize it as something apart from the ultimate realities. So according to this, it seems like the consciousness should be stronger and stronger, but we have to keep in mind, in addition to this adding of the javana speed, this normal, the natural mind, law of mind also works here. According to the law of mind, after the consciousness comes into number 4, the mind of the speed of the mental process. So there are 3 things actually. Every consciousness passes the speed to the following consciousness, so it arises. Then in the javana consciousness, there is something called an additional speed which makes the following consciousness stronger. And within a mental process, not the mental stream, within the mental process, there is a law of mind which makes the consciousness stronger step by step, one after another. But that process starts to drop down after the 4th javana consciousness as a law. So what happens, even though the number 4 consciousness, now number 1 consciousness adds this to the number 2. At the same time, the mind process is in the increasing phase. So the number 2 javana becomes stronger than the number 1 javana. Number 3 becomes more stronger, and number 4 is the strongest. Why is that? The process, the increasing within the process is at the peak at the same time. So because this number 2 is more powerful than number 1, so the support it gives to the number 3 is higher than the support it got from number 1. So the number 3 support is higher to the number 4 than the support given by 2 to 3. But what happens, it should be that the number 4 should give a more support to number 5, but what happens as a law of impermanence, this process drops down. The mind, law of mind, according to law of mind, within the mental process, the speed drops down. So even though this number 4 can give much support to number 5 than it receives from the number 3, because of the law of the mind process, 5 is getting less stronger than number 4. Because as a law, the entire mind process starts to drop down. Then 6 is weaker than 5 and 7 is weaker than 6. But when we compare, the weakest is number 1 and the second weakest is number 7. Within the process, number 4 is the highest. Then we categorize number 5 as the second, number 3 as third, number 6 as fourth, and the number 2 as fifth, and number 6 as the seventh as the sixth, and the number 1 as the weakest. So that's how normally we categorize the strength of these chittas. So it drops down, and the 7th consciousness, the javana speed of the 7th consciousness passes away together with the number 7 consciousness. It doesn't passes to the following consciousness. So therefore the Javana process stops. Javana are specific chittas that have a higher cognition or ability to perform certain acts. So that extra ability is transformed from consciousness to consciousness. So according to that, the following Javana consciousness become powerful. But as the law of impermanence working within the law of mind within a mind process, the law of mind, chitta niyama we call, the law of mind within a mind process, it also acts. So it drops down after number 4. So therefore, after number 4th Javana, the strength of the Javana starts to decline. And normally we say after the number 5th Javana, the mind is considered as dropped. It's like the mind process has dropped down. Patita, we call patita. It has dropped after the number 4. So then so what happens is asevana pacche sati is the Javana speed that transforms from one mind to another. So it's also something stands in between. Then we have the third type of paccha force, pakatupanisya pacche sati. Pakatupanisya pacche. This is also quite important to our lives. So these are more technical type, like how the consciousness arises and how the consciousness becomes stronger. Now we are talking about something that are related to our practice directly. Even these are related to our practice to understand the impermanence. But now we know that we have a habitual impact of what we do into the future. If someone practices bad habits, it becomes a habit. We call it implants in our mind. Our mind starts to feel easy to do the similar act. So we call it a habit. The mind tends to go to perform similar acts. So this habitual impact is sometimes is explained with the term pakatupanisya. Pakatupanisya we normally translate as the strong necessary support, which is strong necessary support. So pakatupanisya has few aspects. So sometimes because of this happens. Because of the learnedness, someone practices vipassana. Because of faith, someone performs dana. So this is also pakatupanisya. At the same time, we have a habitual type of pakatupanisya. Habitual type means if we tend to practice charity, it's easy for us to perform charity again. If we get angry always, our mind tends to falls into anger all the time, very easily. So we call it a habit. So that's why the habits are, it's very important for us to practice good habits. So it's easier for us to perform the good deeds. So that's what even these habits transform. The habitual impact can be seen from life to life. So that's why the Bodhisattva tends to do great wholesome deeds. Even some are unthinkable by others because he has developed strong habits in past lives. So sometimes we may see him as a normal person who was born like us and of our same age, but we see some certain special attributes within such a person, like a bodhisattva. So we tend to become surprised how he could do such things. So mainly that are attributed to his habits in the past life. So he has been practicing such good qualities within the samsara. So even when some normal person, on occasions when a normal person gets angry, that person doesn't yield his anger. He can be great compassionate towards the person, people who even harms him. So that is because he has practiced these compassionate feelings throughout his past lives. So likewise, the habits are quite important. So what happens technically when we practice such things is, now if this is the mind stream, so when we have a good habit, for example, good quality, so the consciousness passes away, it leaves a certain habitual impact within our mind stream, like the karma, but it is different from the karma. A habitual impact, I would call. So this follows the mind stream. So this habitual impact causes our mind. What happened? This habitual impact causes our mind to have similar qualities again. It's a cause that happens. It makes the mind to, it impacts the mind. It's not like Anusaya. In Anusaya's case, we drew like, it's like it arose as a consciousness. But here we are not going to draw it as it arose. It is making an impact to the mind stream. So because of that, our mind tends to have that similar qualities. Now, if this good quality was dana, metta, to practice loving kindness, it's very easy for a person to have that similar maitri, metta again. Why is that? Even though the previous act has happened some years ago or even some lives ago, so because of this force that remained within the mind stream, the mind tends to go into similar qualities. The same thing happens with the bad qualities. We know that King Ajatasattu killed his own father, who was a noble being, the King Bimbisara. It is also reported in Jataka story that he did the same act of killing his father, patricide, in a previous life, and the Bodhisattva was the one who consoled him in the end. So there was a habitual impact within his mind stream to kill his own father, because it's killing our parents means it's a huge decision if you do it consciously. If you do it knowingly, there has to be lots of transgression of moral values if someone tends to kill their parents. So as he has done it before, so it was easier for him to take that step. So that is the danger of practicing bad habits, because the first time we do it, we all know that when we try to do it for the second time, it becomes easier than the first occasion. So likewise, a person may kill someone in a war. The first killing was something really, it makes a huge impact into his mind. The decision was sometimes taken very, very, very difficultly, but after he has used that, he had get used to that act, it becomes something very natural. So likewise, the same thing happens with the good habits. If we practice the good habits, very naturally tend to have that similar feeling, similar qualities. If someone is supportive to others, have practiced giving dana, whenever see a person with suffering or a beggar, naturally the tendency comes to give. That is because of the habits. So if we have done it for now, sometimes within this life the habits could manifest very easily, but to make an impact to the samsara, it is necessary that we keep on practicing these good habits again and again. So because when we fall into the samsara, we cannot guarantee what sort of lives that we would get, because our patisandhi chitta could change dramatically based on the karma that gets the opportunity. So that's why even the Bodhisattva has become some ordinary beings in ordinary lives, born in ordinary lives in the samsara, and sometimes even in the animal lives. But the thing that saved him was the habits that he had performed. So because he has developed so many admirable qualities in past lives, even being an animal, sometimes he manifests some qualities that are even beyond the human capacity. So it doesn't mean that everything happens because of the past life, because of the past habits. Past habits are a great cause, great reason for us to develop. But we can develop new habits within this life, that is obvious. So when we have the opportunity to develop good habits, what we have to do is to keep on grabbing this opportunity and developing on this. Like we have to take the opportunity and develop as much as possible. That's what I saw from my teacher, Venerable Aryadhamma Mahatera. When he got the opportunity in this human life, he didn't give up that. He even practiced the entire life. Each and every second in his life was used to develop good habits throughout his monk life, because that is the security that you can get for the samsara. So therefore, this habitual impact also remains within the mind stream after good or bad qualities has been done, and they cause the arising of similar qualities. At the same time, when a consciousness takes an object, a certain object very strongly, like an attractive object, or we understand something very deeply, or we get attached to some object, that also leaves a certain impact within the mind stream. And our mind tends to go to that object again and again, to that similar object. So that is also attributed this Pakatupanisya. So these mental clusters leave a certain force within the mind stream which causes for the arising of similar qualities at the same time to take for the mind to go into similar objects. So we have two aspects of this. So these all three what we have discussed so far are forces of the conditions. They are different from the condition. Condition is one thing, its ability is different. So when this consciousness causes this consciousness, now this is the cause, this is the effect. What was its ability to make this happen? That was this energy that was left behind, the impact that was left behind causes the arising of this consciousness. So therefore this is the Paccaya force. So these Paccaya forces, the speed of cognition, the Javana speed, the habitual impact, all remains in the mind stream, or all can be found even after their cause, the reality they belong to, have passed away. So therefore we do recognize them as existing in one form, but we, in the Theravada tradition, we don't put them into the category of the realities. But one can ask the question, can't we call them the Paramattha Jatikas? So here, personally, I see a difference when we call the Paramattha Jatikas. It was the Kamma force that arose as a Vipaka. It was the latent tendency that arose as a defilement. But here, they are causing. It's not the force is arising as a reality. It causes the arising of a consciousness. This cognition speed causes the arising of another consciousness. This Javana speed spreads to another consciousness. So I see a slight difference in them. So that's why they were categorized as a separate, in the separate group, in between the concepts and the ultimate realities, but they tend to manifest attributes of realities. Yeah, so this will be the lecture, and so what we have to, the takeaways are, so there are certain conditions and their ability to support the result in these occasions can exist even after the condition and passed away. So condition is a reality. This ability should not be considered as a separate reality, and is not a synthesized object of the mind. It is something that exists. So we have to count them. We have to discuss about them when we talk about the ultimacy in general sense, overall sense. So that will be topic, and for us to our practice, what we have to do is to develop good qualities as much as possible, so they leave a habitual impact in our mind stream, and they cause us for the arising of similar good qualities. And also we have to be very careful not to develop negative, bad emotions or qualities, because like what happened to Ajatasattu, we may not be able to do such strong things in this life, but they can cause for dangerous acts to happen in future lives. So this will be the lecture. So yeah, so I'll open the forum to have a Q&A session.
Good morning, Bhante.
Good morning, Dr. Ryan.
So I have the first question is short question. So here you mentioned the three Paccaya Sapphi, and one of them is the Anantara. It relates to the Anantara Paccaya.
Yeah.
So does that mean that we also included the Samanantara Paccaya, Bhante?
Yes, similar, but there is like Samanantara is the similar force, but it has various explanations. According to the commentary, Anantara and Samanantara are identical. There is no difference according to the commentary. According to some teachers, Anantara is the causing of the arising of the following consciousness. Samanantara is the effect, the cause of the previous consciousness for the happening of the suitable consciousness, the following one. It means after Panchadwara Vajana, it has to be one of the 10 Vijnana. So Samanantara is the support given by the previous consciousness to the following consciousness to happen in the most suitable way. Then according to some teachers like Ledi Sayadaw, Samanantara means the Anantara supports the following consciousness to happen. Samanantara makes it to happen without leaving any gap. without leaving any gap. So even one is born in the Asanya Satta or Nirodha Samapatti. So what they say is time. This time is not the absence of a reality is not considered as a gap. So because it has been suppressed by some other means. But in the normal, so in these mental clusters, now in the Rupa Kalapas we have certain gaps. So likewise there are no gaps between two mental clusters. So that aspect is elaborated by Samanantara. So that's why, so there are three explanations. So, but this speed attribute that exists after the consciousness is well explained by the Anantara. That's why I just took Anantara.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. Sadhu.
Right.
And the next question is, so here in this group, you mentioned 3 satis. So it is just it, or it is just the representatives, Bhante?
I would call the representatives, but we can see like the Maggat Pachaya and Jhana Pachaya sometimes can have an effect on the following consciousness, Ahara and so forth. But these are like, I felt like they are very clear to understand. So that's why I mentioned. Otherwise, they should be representatives, not the entire.
Right. Yeah, it's just because I also thought about this when you gave the lecture. Because the common feature I see in these 3 Pachaya is that with its Pachaya Sakti, in each of the Pachaya Dhamma causes or supports the Pachayupanna Dhamma to arise after it disappears. So we can see that feature in some of the Pachayas as well, right?
Yeah. Correct. Like Ahara and so forth. Yes. So, but I just went because it's very easy to understand. As you correctly, it should be considered representatives.
Thank you, Bhante. So the next question, Bhante, is from the audience. So the first one is the speed of the cognition the same as the 17th cognition process?
17?
Cognition process, Bhante. So in the Chitta process, we have 17.
Consciousness. Yeah. So then speed means?
So the question is related to the Anantara Patijasati. So in the Anantara Patijasati, you mentioned the speed of cognition. So the question is that speed of cognition the same as the 17th cognition process?
No. Cognition process means, now cognition process means, if I erase this, cognition process is, we have a categorization of consciousness arising. Now we normally say the Bhavanga Chitta, and then we happens Panchadwara Vajjana. So we normally Sampatichana, Santirana. So this how we name them. These are all consciousness, but we have specific names to them. Then we have Tadalamana, and Bhavanga. So this from here to here, the collection of these 17 consciousness is called a cognition process. We call it a process, a mental process. Right? So it is something like the jhana factors. Collectively, jhana factors are called jhana. So likewise, collectively, these 17 consciousness are called the mental process. Or the mental process. So cognition speed exists in each and every consciousness. So this consciousness arises, passes away, it exists, and this consciousness have a certain speed that causes the arising of the following consciousness. So this consciousness also have a certain speed that causes the arising of the following consciousness. So likewise, it keeps on going. A mental process is something different. So cognition speed of cognition is found in every chitta. A mental process means a collection of the consciousness. They are not identical. But within the mental process also there is a speed. Within the mental process also there is a certain, rather than saying a speed, it causes the consciousness to happen with more cognitive ability. So it's quite hard to express what it is, but there is a increasement of the abilities. So within the process also we call it chitta vega. That's similar. the terms will be little bit similar. So what the teachers are saying, some teachers are saying, so this process increases and the fourth jhana it starts to drop down. That's a different kind of speed going on. And what we are talking here is each and every consciousness have a certain speed that causes the happening of the following consciousness.
And the next question is, when the Bodhisattva was reborn as an animal, wasn't it the vow he made to do so, not by his karma?
It's like this. In some occasions, we normally know that a Bodhisattva has a tendency or a liking to be in whatever life, regardless of the pleasures of that life, to serve others, to fulfill his paramis. If his paramis can be fulfilled being an animal, he is ready for that. We can call it a vow, but I'm not sure whether there was such a vow taken mentioned in the Theravada tradition. Some in other traditions they do have this vow, especially in the Vajrayana and so forth. In the Theravada tradition, I'm not aware of such a vow. And in the Theravadians doesn't speak much about this Bodhisattva's practice. That's another reason. But it is recognized and it is highly appreciated. No doubt about that. Then what about whether did he come into the animal life because of this wanting? Not always. Sometimes he was born as an animal because of his akusala karma. Always one has to be born in the woeful realm because of akusala karma. But someone can born in the woeful realm because of his determination. It's true, because if we have a wish to be born in the woeful realm, because of that wish, one kind of akusala karma would come forth and give the rebirth. That is very easy, as it happens to Venerable Rahula and Venerable Rattapala. Venerable Rahula and Rattapala were two good friends in a past life, and both of them were associating good hermits, two hermits. They all had psychic powers. One was regularly going to the mansion of the Sakka, the god of the day, the king of the gods, and the other one was regularly associating the king of the serpents, the Naga. Both the realms had the luxuries, but the Naga realm was an animal realm, so they can never attain higher spiritual attainments. Deva realm was a different thing. So then the Venerable Rattapala actually associated the hermit who regularly went to the Sakka's realm, and the Rahula associated the one who went to the Naga realm. So both of them, whenever these two householders visited this hermit, they start to praise about the luxuries in this divine and the animal Naga realm. So their minds were inclined and they were wishing to be born there. So what happened was, both of them gave dana to the hermits. That was a very powerful dana, because the hermits had already had jhana and they had the psychic powers, so their offering was very powerful. And they wished to be born in those realms. So the Rattapala was born as the Sakka, as the story goes. Maybe the seat of the Sakka was empty, and the Naga realm seat was also empty maybe. So then Venerable Rahula was born as a Naga, but he wished having done wholesome deeds. So it's impossible, according to the Theravada teachings, that one can be born in the animal realm because of a wholesome deed. So because of what has happened is, because he wished for that life, a certain akusala has come forth and gave the rebirth in the Naga realm. Because of his merits that he has done, he was born as the king of the Nagas. So during that time, Venerable the Padumuttara Buddha appeared, and that was the life that Venerable Rahula made the aspiration to be a son of a Buddha, seeing the son of Padumuttara Buddha. And Venerable Rattapala wished to become the foremost in faith, being the Sakka. So that is the story. So it is possible that one can aspire to be an animal and be born there very easily, but technically it has to happen with akusala rebirth, rebirth of akusala karma. So whatever, whether you go there with a wish or a vow, whatever, the process has to be akusala. But it doesn't mean that the Bodhisattva always was born as an animal because of his vow, because he has done akusala. You can see in the Temiya Jataka. In the previous life, he was born as born in one of the hells because of holding the kingship. For 20 years, he suffered in the hell for 80,000 years because of the punishments that he had given and all the cruelty that he had yielded because being in power. So he remembered his past life, and he somehow managed to escape from the household life and the kingship and became a hermit. So therefore bodhisattvas are born in the woeful realm because of their bad deeds that they have done. But there is one occasion that he became an animal with a aspiration. There was a long drought tormenting the human world at a certain area, and he was born as a Brahma, and he saw one of his relatives, well, not one of his, some of his relatives were born in one of the lakes as fish in past lives, relatives of past lives. So they were born as fish, and they were in the danger of getting killed because of a drought. So Bodhisattva knew that if he goes there and make a determination because of his wholesome deed, the power, he would be able to make it a rain, because he knew the drought is going to last for a long time because of maybe he had a good weather forecast because of his Brahma abilities. So then he was born as an animal. So there is also a technical thing that you cannot be born as an animal directly from the Brahma realm. So we assume that he was born as a Deva. Bodhisattva has the ability to do the Adimutta Kalakiriya, that he can determine that may he pass away from the divine or the Brahma realm and born in where he wishes. In some occasions they can do it. So he passed away and born as a Deva, and from there he passed away and born as an animal, a fish, and he was the leader of the fish, and he became the leader, and he made a determination that day, and he caused it to rain. So there is one incident in which he aspired to be an animal and became an animal. In most of the cases, I personally think, and it is also clear, that he became an animal because of his bad deeds that he has done as a Putujana being in the samsara. But it's mentioned that they would not hesitate to be born in whatever life if they have a possibility to support others, and that was the decision the Sumedha made in the first place, to enter into samsara to support to become a Buddha.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So one question, when you mention the speed of the consciousness,
yeah,
I think the speed isn't it the same, Bhante, for every chitta, because it's just 3 chittakshanas, right? So one chitta, the speed of the consciousness is 1 chittakshana, correct? Is it the speed or the impact or the force, the strength of the mind?
No. When I said speed, it doesn't mean the distance divided by time. The speed, like not the rising speed of the consciousness. We can call it the strength if we want. So that's why I say the momentum-like speed, something like that. Momentum-like speed. So when we say, it's a good thing that you raise this question. Like when I say a certain chitta has a speed and the Javana chittas has an extra speed, it doesn't mean that they arise and pass away, not the frequency of the arising and passing away. Every chitta has a similar lifespan. I'm not talking about the lifespan, so I'm talking about the impact, like a momentum, like a kind of a thing.
And also, Bhante, now, when you say, imasmin sati idam hoti, so there it is, the both thing, like A and B has to exist in the same time, right? It's not A existing, after it passing away, B happens.
In some, both is okay. They can happen together, they can happen afterwards. For example, Sankara causes Vijnana, Sankara happens in the past life, Vijnana happens in the latter life. So for example, if we now someone can ask, now Sankara has passed away, so how it can cause the Vijnana? So whether Sankara is existing at that time? Yes, so that is the karma force that is existing. So karma force exists. So in that case, when you say imasmin sati idam hoti, both has to exist, yes, it has to exist in one way or another, maybe in a different form, or maybe its energy has to, or force has to exist. Yeah.
It's like, Bhante, I think when you have electricity, you have the light. The moment electricity goes, the light goes. So it's like that. What I have heard earlier is that it has to exist together. So that is why it is anitya, because if something goes off, then the result also will vanish.
Then that is another thing. Like for example, according to Theravadis. Now, as you said, is perfectly correct. Like it has to exist when the other happens. Like the first consciousness passes away, the other one happens. So how do we manage to say that it must be sati idang hoti? Because the speed exists. Speed is connected to the consciousness. So because the speed exists, the other consciousness happens. So as you said, when the karma produces the result, the karma force has to exist. So it causes the result. Yeah, it exists. So then in terms of the impermanence, like the Nirodha Vara is different from this. It's not because the cause is not there, it passes away. No. A reality that has happened would naturally passes away, regardless of its causes. There is no necessary of a support of a cause or absence of a cause for reality to pass away. It is a natural thing. If something arises, it decays and passes away. There is no necessity of another ingredient for the decaying and passing away. So Nirodha Vara means the Anupanna Nirodha. So when there the A is not present, B will not happen. It's not talking about the passing away of B because of the absence of A. So when it's also a very important thing. Thank you for raising this question. So so when we say A causes B, right? Because A is there, B happens. A is there, B happens. As you said, A and B have to be there. It must mean sati idang hoti, either as the karma force. When this, if this is the karma and this is the result, karma has already passed away. At least the karma sati has to remain for the B to happen. In true consciousness, even the speed has to exist for the causing of the other consciousness to happen. Then when we come into the negation, cause and result, when A is not there, B is not there. So we can have two considerations. One is when there is no A. When there is no A, B passes away. That's one consideration. When there is no A, B passes away. The other consideration is when there is no A, B does not arise. B does not arise. According to Theravada, it's clearly mentioned, for the passing away of a reality, you don't need to have the absence of A, or we don't need to think about a cause. There is no relationship with a cause with the passing away of B, because it's a natural thing. It's a it's a natural law. Whatever arises naturally decays and passes away. So according to Theravadians, what they're focusing, if there is no A, the B does not arise. Anupanna Nirodha we call. Anupanna Nirodha means when the A, the sankhara are not there, when the karma force is inactive, it doesn't have the ability to produce, the vijnana would not arise. It's not that when the karma force is not there, the arisen vijnana passes away. No, according to the Theravadins, it's a momentary existence is there. Whatever arises naturally passes away. So therefore, when we say A is not there, it must mean asati idang na hoti. We are talking when the cause is not present, the result would not happen. It's not that the result would pass away.
It's not the right, right?
Yeah. That's how we explain it.
Okay, Bhante, thank you.
Okay, sadhu.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sadhu. Sally, actually, this is Sally Perez.
Okay.
Sadhu, I have a question. So you were explaining this Anantara Pacha, etc. This is, so the Pacha Sati arises together with the reality. I wonder, what about Pachajata Pacha? Would that mean that Sati exists always, or before, or how?
Pachajata means the cause happens later, right? The Pachopanna has occurred. So it is something for the supporting. The Chitta, the Rupa has already occurred. The Rupa has occurred already. So sometimes the consciousness also, now it also arises together. So we are talking about the consciousness which happened together, the Rupa. The consciousness which happened, now this is the arising of Rupa. This is the arising of, now this consciousness happens after the Rupa has occurred. So this consciousness which occurs later to the rupa supports this rupa. So this is the Pachajata. The cause has occurred later to the cause has occurred later to the Pachayupanna, the effect. So this is the effect. So this is not Janaka, it's Upastambhaka. So therefore, in that sense, this Chitta has the ability to support the Rupa. That ability is the Pachaya Sati. They have the ability. That ability is explained as a one kind of a strange, like we call it, in Sinhalese we call it a very abhut, like some kind of a strange phenomenon. It's an ability of the consciousness. Even the I consciousness supports the entire Rupa. So it's the ability, or it's the ability of the consciousness to support something which is even far away, like for example the consciousness which arises here, that supports the entire body according to Abhidhamma. So this ability is within the consciousness and it supports the Rupa that has occurred before the occurring of this consciousness. So the Pachajata Pachaya Sati passes away together with the consciousness. It passes away together with the consciousness. It arises, and when it passes away, the Pachaya Sati also passes away. It doesn't remain afterwards. While it is existing, it supports the Rupa which has occurred before it. So Pachajata means cause is Pachajata, later happened. The cause has happened later to the effect, because effect has already occurred and the cause is supporting it. The cause is supporting, this is the cause, is supporting an effect that has occurred before. The consciousness which arises together with this Rupa does not support. Only the consciousness that have occurred later would support. So that is how we normally explain the Pachajata Pachaya. So it's like the trees, that trees have grown already, the rain which falls supports their growth, something like that. Is it clear, or we can have a discussion if you have any questions further? Sally.
Yeah, it's clear. Think about that.
Okay. So next week we'll be discussing about the 3 universal characteristics about the realities. This merit of discussing Dhamma, may all of you be able to understand Dhamma deeply, precisely, and attain the Nirvana, and may this merit support the long lasting of the Buddha's teachings. Buddha sasanang chirantiktatu. Buddha sasanang chirantiktatu. Buddha sasanang chirantiktatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.